Attention, because with every passing hour, the situation here in the region is becoming more and more delicate. Many things are happening right now. Greetings, I'm Arya. Let's get to the point, because what's happening right now points to a scenario that not long ago seemed just possible, and now it's sounding imminent. A United States attack on Iran? With a level of military preparation that hasn't been seen in a very long time, and with Iran responding with direct threats. At the most sensitive point on the planet, the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, a key place for the world economy. And something we need to understand when countries start moving ships, planes, fuel, air defenses, and heavy logistics. That's not just for show on social media. That's, of course, much more than diplomacy. That's the logistical part of war, the prelude to an attack. And when the pieces are on the board, the only thing left is for someone to press the button. Look at this. In the last few hours, Iran's Revolutionary Guard has released drone footage of the aircraft carrier, the United States ship Abraham Lincoln. This is extremely sensitive, and when you see them, when you can examine them, they're not distant images. They're images from an Iranian drone flying right above the aircraft carrier. So far, there have been no statements from the United States, and I don't think we're going to see any. But if the images that were released turn out to be true, if they turn out to be real, the message is very clear. If Iran has the ability to put a drone over the aircraft carrier without being detected, the danger in that sense, of course, is imminent. At the same time, media outlets linked to the Iranian regime have issued very strong warnings against the approach of the United States ship Abraham Lincoln Strike Group. And they have said that they have the capability to sink it with very advanced hypersonic missiles in the event of a direct confrontation. That afternoon, the spokesperson for the Iranian National Security Committee, Ibrahim Reza, warned about the possibility of a military escalation in the Persian Gulf. Listen closely over the next 24 hours. This isn't from a YouTuber. In Iran, we're talking about the spokesperson for the National Security Committee, so we're not talking about just anyone from Iran. They're talking about an extremely short window of time. Meanwhile, on the other side, on the American side, Donald Trump himself has said, to prevent them from being deployed to Iran, and he hopes he won't have to use them. As always, the messages are very ambiguous. He leaves them open. Now, to understand why this looks so advanced, you have to look at the actual deployment. So let's deploy everything that's already here in the region that the United States has in the area, and that's arriving. The central axis of deployment is the attack deployment of the aircraft carrier United States ship Abraham Lincoln with its escort and its air wing. This is not just a ship. It's a mobile war platform with aircraft, defense systems, attack capabilities, and networked coordination. At the same time, it has been reported that the George H.W. Bush left Norfolk, Virginia. The final destination is not always publicly confirmed at this time, but the movement fuels the perception that the United States wants to have more than one operational option on the table. Here's a part many overlook, yet it's crucial in any major air operation. The tanker planes. A high number of tanker planes have been reported deployed from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf. Why is this important? Because to sustain long-range attacks, bombers and escorts need to refuel in the air. Refueling planes in mid-flight. When you see tanker planes in large numbers, it's not a minor detail. It's preparation. Not only have tanker planes been seen, but there have also been movements of surveillance and coordination planes, like the RCE-135, electronic warfare aircraft, like the SES-130, and early warning and control platforms like the E-3 airborne warning and control system. Simply put, these are planes that see, that listen, that coordinate, that conduct electronic warfare and surveillance. When you see that mix along with tankers, the picture becomes very clear. The scenario starts to take shape. About the bombers, there has been discussion about the movements of the B-52's B-1S and B-2 Spirits. crossing into Europe and entering air corridors that are usually used as a prelude to larger deployments. Takeoffs were reported from bases known for operating these systems. We need to understand that their movement doesn't necessarily mean it has already begun. It could also be a show of force to force concessions, or, as we saw in the 12-day war last June, strategic distraction maneuvers. Either way, the point is that the military option becomes real and executable day by day. At the logistics level, a wave of military transport flights was reported. Several C-17s arrived from the Middle East at night, and there has been a high volume of flights accumulated throughout the week to United States bases in the region. The arrival of the giant, the C-5M Super Galaxy, was also reported. It's one of the largest military transports in the United States and in the world, at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, which means they're moving heavy equipment, ammunition, spare parts, and of course, personnel. In addition, there has been talk of United States Air Force transport making routes to Jordan using logistical stopovers. And this, well, is relevant because Jordan is Jordan. It allows movement close to the theater of operations without making as much noise as other, more distant points. It's really almost the immediate entry point to Iran. And here we get into hard data that I want to share with you, which helps to understand the scale of the air power that's already deployed in the region. At land bases near this entire theater of operations, the United States has concentrated a very significant number of fighter and direct attack aircraft at Muwafaq Santi Base in Jordan. There are reports of 37 F-15E Strike Eagle jets aircraft specifically designed for precision and long-range attacks. At the same time, from Royal Air Force Lakenheath in the United Kingdom, the United States has around 35 F-15E and 54 F-35A aircraft deployed. Fifth-generation jets with stealth capability and deep penetration into hostile airspace. If needed, they could be here in the region within a matter of hours. Additionally, in Jordan as well, the presence of approximately 24 A-10 aircraft has been mentioned, and the famous bombers, platforms specialized in close air support and attacking ground targets. Although the exact number is not completely confirmed, in general terms, this gives us a very clear picture of the air arsenal that has been. It is already available here in the region. At least 72 F-15S and 54 F-35As and around 24 to 10 operating or ready to operate from bases around the Middle East. This is not a symbolic deployment. It's a force designed to sustain intense air operations from the ground, and that's not even counting the entire Israeli Air Force. Well, and to all this is added a very specific, sensitive move: the deployment of the most advanced electronic warfare aircraft of the United States Air Force, the Electronic Countermeasures 37 Compass Call. This aircraft took off from a base in Bermuda headed for Ramstein Air Base in Germany, where it's scheduled to make a stopover for refueling. Once that stopover is completed, it would need about 12 more hours to position itself closer to Iran. And this, well, is key to understand clearly. This type of platform isn't deployed just to show the flag. Its function is to interfere with the enemy's radar, communications, and command systems. In other words, to blind and disorganize the adversary before or during the operation. It's exactly the same electronic attack unit that operated over Lebanese airspace during the attacks against Hezbollah, using pager devices, the famous Vipers operation, which already gives us an idea of its real operational role. Now, the fact that this plane is still in transit and requires hours to reach operational positions. I would suggest that, at least at this moment, it's unlikely that the United States will launch a direct attack against Iran. At least not tonight, as has been indicated, or in the 24-hour window, as the Iranian official has indicated. But at the same time, from the arm's length, the lines are drawn. But before I dive in, I want to share with you the story of this vial, which amazed me, and I think you should know about too. This vial holds an unbelievable story that was unheard until now. Inside is earth from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, rescued by archaeologists after thousands of years of history were dumped as rubble. It is our opportunity to prevent history from disappearing. Start the new year with a personal connection to Jerusalem. Click the link in bio or scan the code to enjoy a special offer. It's something that's being put on the table. On the other hand, it's also important to emphasize something. Iran is not good. The country has advanced electronic defense, warfare, and anti-jamming systems from Russia and China. That means that if the threshold for attack is crossed, the confrontation would not be one-sided or simple, but rather a very complex technological battle. Now, besides attack, there's another word that needs to be emphasized. Defense. Because if the United States strikes, Iran will respond. And if Iran responds, it's most likely that it will try to attack United States bases. Or, well, not just most likely, they've already said it. United States bases and naval assets. The regime has also clearly stated that Israel will be the first target of their response. Today, they published a map with more than 20 different targets of all kinds here in Israel. In this context, the reinforcement of air defenses in the region has been mentioned, including systems like the Patriot or the TAC, which are used to intercept missiles and protect critical infrastructure. This fits with the scenario where an Iranian retaliation with missiles and drones is feared. Here in Israel, the reports are constant, and this is what everyone is talking about right now in all the media outlets. From Prime Minister Netanyahu to the Israeli Defense Minister and the top military commanders, everyone insists that Israel is prepared for any scenario, that it is ready for both attack and defense. There have also been reports of United States destroyers in the Persian Gulf equipped with air defense and precision strike capabilities, and ships specialized in mine countermeasures. Why mines? Because Iran is trying to close the Strait of Hormuz. One of the cheapest and most dangerous tools are naval mines and asymmetric attacks. To this naval deployment, an even more sensitive and much less visible piece is added. A United States submarine armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles operating in or near the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Everything points to it being an Ohio-class guided missile submarine, and nuclear-powered guided missile submarine platforms capable of carrying up to 54 Tomahawk missiles. In practical terms, this means that the United States has an underwater capability for massive, silent, and of course, highly precise attacks, ready to strike strategic infrastructure, defense systems, command centers, and deep military targets without the need to expose aircraft or aircraft carriers. In the first phase, this movement does not occur in the neighborhood. It comes right after Iran announced significant improvements in its ballistic capabilities and fits within a supremely clear deterrence strategy. To show that, even in the face of missile threats and maritime closures, the United States retains the ability to respond with an immediate and devastating wave of cruise missiles. And now let's touch on a point that could shake the entire planet in a matter of hours, precisely in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is reportedly preparing for a complete shutdown if conflict erupts. Explosive boats, naval mines that I just mentioned, and platforms armed with missiles to enforce an absolute blockade. In addition, there was talk of a maximum alert order for naval forces, commandos, and coastal missile systems, raising the level of readiness for both the regular navy and the naval force of the Iranian regime. And as if that weren't enough, it was reported that the Iranian submarine Fateh is heading toward the Persian Gulf near the Strait of Hormuz. This is not just a move. It's part of the game of deterrence of saying, here I am and I can make your life difficult. Precisely because of this move, the United States also deployed its submarine. Now, in the midst of this level of tension, it's also important to put a stop to the disinformation that's spreading very strongly. In the last few hours, videos have been circulating claiming that 16 Chinese military cargo planes landed in Tehran to support Iran. That information, up to this moment, has no real backing. There are no reports confirming it in the Iranian press, the Chinese press, or the Arab press. Here in Israel, that's also unconfirmed, and there are no verifiable records of those alleged flights on real-time open-air tracking platforms. In fact, this kind of narrative is similar to other recent episodes where videos went viral claiming that Chinese planes, the famous 20, were dropping aid over Gaza. I'm not sure if you still remember that episode. Many people thought it was real, but it was quickly proven to be completely false. It never happened. I'm clarifying this because in situations like this, the information war runs parallel to the military one, and mixing real data with rumors or videos taken out of context only creates confusion and unrealistic expectations. There are enough serious, verifiable facts here that we don't need to fall for the hype. So be very careful with what you see on social media, because right now they're flooded with everything that's happening here in the region. Now, going back to Iran's real capabilities, a lot of people are asking, could Iran really destroy an aircraft carrier? The responsible answer is this. Iran has an inventory of missiles, drones, naval forces, submarines, and asymmetric tactics. The United States operates with layered defenses, escorts, sensors, and firepower around its strike groups. An aircraft carrier is never alone. In a real conflict, everything depends on coordination, saturation, attack, survival in the moment, and how quickly the situation starts to escalate. That's why on the Iranian side, they're sending internal messages saying, "We're ready." Today, General was summoned, saying that they are more prepared than ever, with their finger on the trigger, and they warned the United States and Israel to avoid miscalculations, and that if they start a war, it will be a war to the death. Death. They say there will be no room for concessions, truces, or negotiations. If they start a war, that war will end with a loser and a winner. This conflict can't be understood without considering Iran's internal context, as a political engine is driving the crisis. They're talking about the terrible, very bloody repression in the midst of protests that are still ongoing, and about very high numbers of deaths and arrests. With different numbers between activist sources and official figures, at least Trump publicly gave a figure of 20,000. And in the midst of all this, a scenario of very serious internal violence is unfolding. There was also reported nervousness among airlines, with some European flights to the region suspended, both to Israel and to neighboring countries. This usually happens when the perceived risk rises and insurance companies get very nervous. At the same time, there has been talk of regional coordination in case of escalation. Listen carefully. Countries like the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and the United Kingdom would be ready to support the United States and Israel with logistics and intelligence if the situation gets worse. That is the reality of these crises. Many governments, you see them on the news, denying public involvement, even being enemies with each other. But underneath, they are cooperating under certain agreements that have been signed between them, obviously behind the scenes. Okay, now let me make a quick parenthesis. If you want to stay up to date with all this situation, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and if you want to go a step further, remember that there are channel memberships that give you access to a private group that sends you news via WhatsApp, where I share alerts and updates throughout the day. All right, let's continue, and now move on to Israel. Let's look at the home front, because Israel is in the middle of the line of fire, simply because of geography. In the last few hours, authorities and official sources have insisted that no immediate changes in instructions for the population are expected, and that if there were any changes, you will know and understand it. Time in quotes means once the first attack has been launched, we've already experienced it, so we know how the dynamic works. Also, something very basic was emphasized: only listen to authorized sources and do not cooperate with rumors. Today, with this level of tension, that's more than important. And of course, it's also an invitation for you. And this is precisely the reason why, on my part, believe me, I make a great effort to filter, review, and corroborate all the information I share with you. Well, as you know, my intention is not to speculate, but simply to put the available information on the table. Many say I just want to scare people, but that's not my goal. If what I do scares them, I can't help it. That's just how it is. And I know that you also know how to truly appreciate what I do, which I really thank you for. All right, let's continue, because there's another important point. The head of United States Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, met yesterday here in Israel with the Chief of Staff, General Eyal Samir, and with high-ranking Israeli officials. At a time like this is not a protocol visit to have coffee. This is real-time coordination. We just have to remember that his predecessor, the famous Michael Kurila, was right here in Israel, supposedly for a routine meeting and to assess everything that was happening. Last year, he visited on June 8, 2025. 5 days later, Israel was attacking Iran at the beginning of what we now know as the 12 Days War. So we have to take these visits from the top United States military commanders to Israel very seriously. We also have to keep that in mind. He was also in Damascus and met with al-Shura, the president, discussing issues related to Syria and Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, the smuggling of weapons to Hezbollah across the Syrian-Lebanese border. This shows that the United States is looking at the whole board, because if this blows up with Iran, everything else will ignite like a powder keg. At the same time, it was also reported that in internal conversations within the Israeli government, the United States. Brilliant reports. What? Missile systems, infrastructure, command centers, refineries, and any other key strategic points, both military and related to Iran's economy. In other words, if the door is opened, it should be to deliver a decisive blow, or as Don himself said, to unleash hell. In the United States, some of Trump's advisors reportedly support an attack, while others oppose it. Among them are his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Witkoff, who are currently in Israel. Closely following this whole situation, it's not that they are opposed, but rather they want to have another window of opportunity for this to end in a diplomatic matter and not reach the point of war. At the same time, the possibility arises that an attempt will be made for a negotiation path to avoid the worst. During the visit of these two figures, there were very tough demands. Pay close attention, as this is the problem. When conditions are nearly unacceptable, the negotiation weakens without losing power, making it seem like they don't truly want to negotiate. Look at the 3 conditions, among many others, that the United States sets to stop the attack against Iran. First, that Iran aborts its nuclear development. You respond and indicate if that's possible. Second, that it breaks its ties with its proxies in the region, meaning that it stops funding them. Tell me if Iran would be willing to do this. And third, to recognize the state of Israel. Tell me in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If Iran would be willing to do this, if these conditions determine the attack, then there's no doubt there will be war, because Iran would never accept these conditions, none of them. Well, maybe if the Ayatollah really feels pressured and his life is in danger. Today, it was reported that Ayatollah Khamenei and his entire entourage of power, they are currently installed in a high-security bunker. Very, very deep, of course, in a location unknown to us, but I don't think it's so unknown to the tentacles of Mozart during this whole escalation we've seen so far. This is the first time it has been made public, at least according to reports from Iran, that Ayatollah Khamenei has gone into one of his bunkers. Amid all this, it has also been reported that the Iranian leadership is operating from these underground facilities and with extraordinary security measures accompanying Khamenei. In other words, they have moved their command center down there as well, which lets us understand that the regime fears a real and fatal strike. Many people are asking a simple yet reasonable question. Will this end with a strike, a retaliation, or an escalation? Or will it end in a last-minute negotiation forced by military pressure? Because, look, there's talk of dialogue, but with very strict conditions for the Iranian regime. On the other hand, they talk like they want real results, not just appearances. When both sides take such positions, the room for maneuver becomes very narrow. For my part, for now, I'll stick with what we're seeing. A loaded board, a ticking clock, and a place, the narrow dormice, where a mistake can be extremely costly for everyone. I'll be following everything that's happening very closely. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you make of this whole situation? How do you think it could end? Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and don't leave without giving a like. Of course, share this video. See you all.